Takeda Pharmaceuticals is essentially a 240-year-old Japanese company. Company specializes in neuroscience, oncology, and then also it's very popularly known for curing dengue disease. So it's dengue vaccine. This process, just in finding that successful candidate, can sometimes take between an year or more. And one of the companies actually utilized AI to identify a potential drug candidate in 46 days. Based on all of that information, AI and then put that in AI can forecast what a patient's response to a specific medicine could be.
What has worked for you to help people adopt a new way of doing things? What works to get people's attention and get them to adopt something new?
As people are thinking about creating AI solutions, let's address real healthcare challenges. So let's not just create AI solutions for sake of it, but let's try to solve genuine problems.
Hello, everyone. This is Jocelyn Houle for BetterTech. We're really excited today to present AI-driven digital transformation in biopharma. With us today is Nishtha Jain, who's the head of innovation and digital technology at Takeda. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I'm really excited to be here on this podcast and speaking with you today on a topic that I'm super passionate about.
Yes, and I'm so excited because I spend a lot of time in the tech and AI sector, but I don't know enough about biopharma. I want to just do some level setting as part of our beginning of our conversation. First of all, for those who don't know, like me, tell me what Takeda does.
Yes, so Takeda Pharmaceuticals is essentially a 240-year-old Japanese company. So again, company has roots from Japan, and again, it has operations in the Cambridge area, in Boston. Again, not Boston, but Cambridge area in Massachusetts. And then it also is headquartered in Japan, but it's a global company across 80 countries with 50,000 plus employees. And again, company specializes in multiple therapy areas, including neuroscience, oncology. And then also it's very popularly known for, curing dengue disease. So it's dengue vaccine.
That's amazing. All right. Now, I really want to kind of get into doing some level setting around biopharma, what it is, what it isn't, and then we'll get into the AI component. But tell me a little bit about your role and how that fits into the AI goals of Takeda.
Yeah, so currently my role is heading innovation and digital technology with focus on R&D quality. So again, R&D in pharma expands from the drug discovery piece to different phases of the clinical trials and then, into the commercialization. But then my role focuses on ensuring the quality across all these processes is in check, because it's one of the important elements of a biopharma company, that we are compliant to all the regulations and we abide by all the policies that are there in place. So then my role comes in to focus on innovating some of the existing processes and digital systems and bringing in emerging technologies, essentially to either bring in AI automations, to bring in, AI in different, how can we do something better than how it's being done today to, get to more efficiency, again, reducing the time, reducing the cost. So figuring all of that out. So again, I would say none of my day is same. Every day is
not these days, right? There's so much new technology coming out, and it's first of all, what a great area to really have your technology and the work you do really uplift people all over the world and help with and bettering their health. I mean, that must get you out of bed in the morning and is an exciting place to be.
Certainly.
Yeah, it's really mission driven. Well, let's play a game. I want to talk a little bit about the biopharma. You said there's this whole process. So even before getting into how AI is going to change that process, help us understand as listeners, in a two-part question.
Yes.
So explain the process to us.
Yes.
And then emphasize for us where things are getting bogged down today.
Got it. So again, Jocelyn, when I talk about biopharma, it's a very different industry from rest of the industries, because typically in biopharma, a drug or a vaccine or, product for us actually takes typically 10 to 15 years to be commercialized or to be out of the pipeline from the beginning of its development. And sometimes it even takes over 2 decades. And essentially what goes into it is somewhere between $2.6 billion to $5 billion. So anything between that goes into, making one drug that comes out across, those many years. So then think of, again,
Let me ask you a question. How many go through that process and simply don't succeed?
Several. And 90%. Or
90% at those 90%. Numbers. My goodness.
Yes. Or at least, to be very precise, in drug discovery phase itself, 75% of the drugs don't make it.
Amazing. All right.
Don't make it.
So it's a lot of money. It's high stakes, right?
Very high stakes.
And it takes a long time.
Exactly. And then, think of, again, innovating in such a space is not the most easy, place to be in. So essentially think of, think of 4 phases. One is drug discovery. Then typically there is a clinical research phase, which we call as, clinical trial. So clinical trial 1, 2, and 3. Again, in the discovery phase, we are trying to identify the molecules or the compounds that may interact with, a different chemical and actually make for a drug candidate, possibly. And then once that's identified in the drug discovery phase, we move into the clinical trial phase where we actually test for the efficacy of that drug on humans and on animals. And again, every trial phase has a different regulation around, how many years or how much time we got to spend in every phase. And then, so this is the second phase, which is clinical trial. Third phase is FDA review, where FDA actually reviews the application of the drug candidate. And if the drug makes it through all the 3 trials and we get enough data to be able to show it to FDA, FDA reviews it, it approves it. And that's when all the, post-marketing or the commercial stuff comes in, where medical affairs and commercial gets involved. And now, we are reaching out to HCPs to share data about our drug. And then, eventually we are trying to sell the drug. So again, this is like, in nutshell, the entire biopharma value chain. And obviously, once, the drug is approved, there is manufacturing of that drug that takes place as well, based on the target market. So again, in this entire process, think of the first phase, which is the drug discovery phase itself.
Like the science.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the first phase, which is drug discovery, takes 3 to 6 years. And that is where 75% of failures or the R&D costs are, because most of the compounds don't make it out of that one.
I got you.
Yeah. And then, all these trials, running these trials could take between 6 to 7 years. So that is where most of the time is spent. But the later stages, once FDA gets it, that's just 2 years.
Okay, so when it goes to clinical trials, it's like you have a candidate you feel good about, but the R&D is kind of the Wild West time of like, we don't know which one's going to work or why, and you got to do some trial and error. And I imagine, let me ask you this, so you've got a multinational company, you mentioned FDA, but I'm sure you have different regulators at every step, right? And different rules at every step.
Agree. And and that's where, when we talk about AI, it's very clear from this timeline and the expenditure that it can revolutionize this drug discovery and drug development space and, could potentially contribute to bringing out these medicines faster out of the pipeline. And think of it eventually impacts, patients and certain like people who are waiting for the drug for a specific medical need or an unmet need. So again, that's the potential of AI if you think about in this space, which is those 2 processes alone.
Let's make that pivot to talk a little bit about how AI is it sounds like AI use cases are different in this space than, say, like what I was just talking about before the show, like, your B2B SaaS world.
Agree. So again, AI is undoubtedly, can revolutionize the field of drug discovery and clinical trials, and it's doing so at the moment. Again, it provides innovative solutions in the early stages. So maybe one of the examples I want to start with is think of, AI can transform the first process just through the potential target identification. So what that means is that AI models can analyze vast amount of biological data, such as, what could be the potential drug targets, such as what proteins, what genes, what pathways, would be needed. And think of the traditional methods that do this right now are all manual. So if AI can do this with the technology, then think of AI can mine all this scientific literature and clinical trial data to specifically identify this drug target. And we actually saw this. So one of the companies did this, and they were able to repurpose a treatment for COVID-19 vaccine for the emergency use. So essentially, that's the process that was used when we were able to, secure COVID-19 potential treatment for emergency use. But again, think of this, if it's done traditionally, it's all manual. It's very difficult to do. But once you apply AI, it's super fast.
Well, let's just break that down. Like what, just for fun.
Yes.
So you've got people who really need this medicine and they need new science. And then without AI, you and I, say you and I want to figure out a new pharmaceutical. What's the manual process look like? Can you describe that? So I want to kind of understand how AI exactly is working here.
Yeah. So the manual process would be going in and searching through the literature to identify that compound, searching through different, protein combinations, through certain genes combinations. So think of all the information that a scientist goes in, researches, and then, is trying to bring that together and then use some tools to bring that data together and trying to see whether it binds or it doesn't bind in chemistry world.
Yeah.
That would be the manual process.
So they just have a notebook, right? They're going through all the materials. You've got your notebook of here's some ideas, and then you try a few things, kick the tires, and it seems like a very obviously it leverages people's expertise, which I think is really important. Taking nothing away from that, but you could imagine in the world of having so much data to look at and so much to sift through. It seems like a perfect use case for an LLM.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to comment on specific technology, but just touch on some of the use cases. So one would be this. The other would be just again in this target space. Think of likelihood of finding that successful drug candidate. Can be so faster. And just to give you an example, again, this process just in finding that successful candidate can sometimes take between an year or more. And one of the companies actually utilized AI to identify a potential drug candidate in 46 days.
I mean, that's amazing. Do you have any, I think those kind of success stories are so helpful. What other outcome improvements have you observed from actually folks implementing AI today? Have you seen that?
Yeah, so this is an example of, company called as In Silico Medicine. And the previous example that I gave you was of Benevolent AI. So these are some of the, I would say disruptors in this field who have shown a potential candidate or actually result using AI. And then, I do want to mention another company, Atomwise, which basically what it did is it employed AI to screen millions of compounds in silico to be able to predict their potential toxicity. So, thus helping us identification of whether it's a safe and effective candidate or not. Because otherwise, we'll take that, do clinical trial and then find out, oh, wow.
It's rid of the gotchas beforehand. So helping you manage the risk ahead of time, too, not just make new discoveries, but manage that risk downstream in the clinical trial.
Exactly. So and this is all drug discovery space. But then, when you think about, say, clinical trials, so again, AI can be utilized in, optimizing clinical trial design, enhancing recruitment of patients. So, you can use digital and AI technologies so more patients are informed about clinical trials running. They can be recruited faster, and then, improving monitoring and management while those trials are running. So as in, say, I am a candidate and I am, taking this drug as a part of clinical trial, and I'm on a 14-day regimen. So now in traditional methods, I would take that medicine, come home, and then maybe manually record it or just, send them a message or inform at some portal that I'm taking the medicine. But now I can have sensors or like an Apple Watch or something that I would get with the drug. It would be attached to me. So then automatically my data is going to, the company running the clinical trial. And hence, overall, it's helping in getting the data faster and also ensuring whether the patient is adhering to the medicine.
They're complying to the rule.
Complying to it. Yeah. So again, in this space, basically IBM Watson has partnered with major pharmaceutical companies, again, in, designing the trial, predicting the trial's success, and also expediting this patient recruitment. So again, it overall accelerates the trial timeline. And again, the results that we get it helps in moving from the phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 faster.
So I want to talk about more success stories, and we, please bring those up as we're talking, because it seems like there's so much impact at every stage of this pipeline. In your world, are there any discussions or concerns, particularly in the R&D? And we can talk about trusted data, because we will talk about that, but also just about the actual, the science. Do people feel good about the science of that R&D when it's AI assisted?
Yeah. So again, there is definitely, I would say, when we talk, if say you want to talk about challenges, I would say the biggest challenges is definitely navigating the human mindset, which is inherent to, technology adoption, whether they think this would be a good one to adopt or not. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely typically there. But then I kind of came up with this acronym called as DUST to talk about all the rest of the challenges, which again are sort of inherent to obviously any new technology, any new thing that comes in. People are doubtful because they think, I could have done this better, or is this even giving the real data?
Right,
so
right.
Gen AI, when we get information, sometimes I ask it, where did this come from? Because sometimes I will put a document, I'm waiting for some information, and it makes it up. And I ask it, where did you get this information from? I only want you to use what's in the document. So again, there is definitely that. But then, to explain you the DUST concept of DUST is, so think of in DUST, D stands for data, U stands for understanding, S stands for strategy, and T stands for talent and technology. So I'll break it down one by one. Data, again, we all know, for AI to work, data serves as the foundation for success of AI, providing crucial information that enables machine to, sort of learn, adapt. So data quality is sort of the heart of if AI could work in this space. So essentially, I would say that's the biggest challenge for biopharma I could say all the companies, but essentially for biopharma company. So to your point, for people to believe in the results, the data has to be the right one, and the data quality. So it needs to be continuously curated and, removing the redundant data, making sure, there's a proper unstructured, structured data that's there, it's being used in the right contextual models. Mm-hmm. So think of that as sort of the heart of, AI, and that is the biggest first challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I wasn't here, but there's a particular problem with fake scientific data. Right? Because there's sort of on the other side of this, you've got, you are with good purpose trying to survey all of the available scientific papers out there and understand a target. But at the same time, there's a big problem in your industry with, I guess, imposter science.
Yeah. I mean, again, I would just say it's more of garbage in, garbage out, right? Okay. So if the data is something that a company has sort of heart and soul in, to clean it up, to have the, proper curation and quality of that, again, the results will be much better. Now, again, second thing, in the DUST, I would say U is the understanding. So again, what the other challenge is for people is essentially not finding out the right business process to apply AI to. So sometimes think of, I could apply AI, but honestly, the problem that was there could have been solved by automation because it was nothing but repetitive process. So I feel like that understanding is like really a question mark when it comes to a lot of times understanding of business processes. But then also, I would say on the leadership side of things, the leaders or C-suite people, and this is called as a term called executive tourism, that, they go to different conferences, they hear about like fancy, shiny tools, they bring that in and they say, let's, apply AI and let's use these tools.
That's never happened to me. I don't know what you mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a major distraction in a lot of ways.
So it's again that same problem that there is no understanding of business processes. So I think that is also a challenge that I see. You can call it people challenge, you can call it leadership challenge, and it's called as like executive tourism, where, people are going after shiny object rather than actually understanding the problem at hand. So that's the U part of it. Now, S is like the strategy part, which is more of, again, a challenge, but also an opportunity, where, again, leadership, if there is a clear AI strategy that, there is an emphasis on by the leadership, and there is an emphasis on embedding, like everybody should have one AI goal this year. This could actually change the way people operate in terms of, adopting the AI and also, sort of thinking about AI. So again, I'm very lucky that I work for a company which actually is thinking like this. So again, I am, able to think of AI in a different way. But again, strategy is very, very important because I think there needs to be an AI strategy. And again, it needs to be communicated by leadership as a story to build excitement, to show people, the potential. Because, Jocelyn, I mean, I don't know if you have seen some stats, but the way AI is changing the future of work, companies that don't have AI strategy eventually will, have an issue with being competitive, or they are eventually gonna, not get those numbers that they are getting right now because all their competitors will have an AI strategy. So that's the other piece that, I always see that if there is AI strategy, that is the company which is able to actually, solve for these problems and move the needle. And the last piece in that dust is talent and technology. So again, technology, we definitely need like reliable infrastructure, the right investment, the right partners to be able to sort of, bring in AI. And a lot of times, the approach could be like centralized and decentralized, meaning there could be a centralized body looking at all these use cases and identifying which one is making sense and which one we should scale up. And there could also be, decentralized use cases because, again, in a very big company like, mine, 50,000 employees, if 20 groups are working on a use case, then it might be, replicative work. And it might be hard to track down. So I think the centralized approach is sort of the best, where company, again, if they have an AI strategy, they will likely try to have a centralized approach of what use cases are there, which are the most valuable use cases, let's work on those. And again, in the same thing, there is this talent piece where, people, whatever you are going ahead with, you have to take people along. So you have to not only recruit the right talent and attract the right talent, but, make sure that all the people are willing to, upscale, learn about AI. And just, I want to share some piece of data here. So according to a McKinsey report, what it says is since ChatGPT was released in late 2022, number of AI-related jobs have quadrupled. And with AI job posting in biopharma alone has increased by 43%. So clearly, now all the jobs are demanding that in the job description. So I definitely think it has to come to that goal level that everybody should have an AI goal every year. But I hope, this helps because I keep thinking of these and I'm like, maybe thinking of DUST as an acronym, helps me break it down.
Yeah, and I like that because it shows the sort of intersectional quality of the problem statement, right? It's not just a technology problem. It's not just a data problem, right? It's kind of got a whole bunch of aspects to it, including talent and leadership. I do think that's a useful acronym just to show how intersectional this problem can be. It's not going to be solved in one part of the company and not in another part. It's going to have to be across the board. One thing I was curious about in the biopharma, or maybe for your organization, or if you've seen this happen successfully, there's so many regulations. Not only do you have to create your own rules for what you think data quality or the quality output is, but there's just a lot of kind of moving target on, what we think we want as inputs, what we think we want as outputs. Like, what have you seen that's successful at scale, right, to create a benchmark of what we want to do in the appropriate and ethical way?
Yeah. So again, and when you talk about the biopharma or specifically life science industries, again, addressing ethical concerns and data privacy issues is very, very crucial to even thinking about bringing AI in, because these fields not only impact the products, but actually health, well-being, human beings, right? So it's something which has direct impact on human life. So, again, there are bunch of things that we need to be mindful of. Of course, like data security, transparency, bias, fairness, consent. Again, all these things come to my mind. But when we talk about data security and privacy, again, there are, a lot of laws and regulations put in place, such as GDPR, which is in Europe, which is data protection law. And then in the US, it's HIPAA compliance, which is essentially patients' data need to be secured, and there needs to be, privacy around the data because it cannot be shared openly. So again, organizations like ours work very closely with legal and compliance team to ensure that any AI solution that comes into the organization meets these requirements. Again, so what that means is, you have to encrypt the data, you de-identify the PHI information, you ensure, that the access or the controls are in place, so none of the information of the patient, can go outside. So I think that's one of the pieces. The other piece that I think is very, very something very important is the human in the loop piece. So again, all these tools, AI tools are great, but we cannot forget about human in the loop, because human in the loop is improving these. So again, so if we want to mitigate bias, which again is introduced through the data, and we want to ensure fairness of, and these data sets, so there needs to be this continuous auditing. And I always call this like concept as human in the loop. So even though these systems can take over, there will always be a human in loop. So we should never forget that that's never going to change. The human is what's making it better. Say Gen AI or even, machine learning. So in both the situations. So again, that's the second component. And then I always think of the transparency in AI decision making. Again, in Europe, there is already a policy in place which will start implementing by 2025, and by 26 it will be fully implemented. And what that policy will do is it will regulate AI. It will say acceptable, non-acceptable, or media. So what it's doing is it's doing a risk profiling: low risk, high risk, low risk, medium risk, and non-acceptable. So any AI, digital health solution or any sort of big AI solutions, you have to measure them through that kind of, regulatory body. Again, in US, I'm still waiting for something like that to happen. So there is a lot of talk in the FDA, in various regulation, even government. There is a lot of talk around how the tech companies will be regulated in future. But again, Europe has already come up with some of those laws out there. So again, where I was tying this up to was more in transparency in AI decision making and how AI is used, so that way the risks can be mitigated if you already know what kind of profile it's falling under.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I do think there's a lot of people have said maybe will the U.S. follow in the footsteps of the EU in the way that they're regulating. Do you think, or in your industry, has there been a discussion of like some kind of federal approach to because HIPAA is sort of a federal approach, right? And you guys are in you've already lived it.
Yes.
Using that kind of example of HIPAA, do you think there should be a national standard for the way AI is used?
Yeah, so again, Jocelyn, it's very interesting because what I heard from people who live in Europe, they were like, oh, okay, this will kill the innovation. So again, they see it as a very different thing. They say, we are not going to be coming up with new things. It's still going to be the US innovating things. So again, there is, as I said, a lot of talk with the FDA and some of the regulatory authorities. But again, to have a law, I mean, I do see that there is a law, but it's not as clear as European regulation, which is, pretty much defining the risk profiling. Yeah. So I think
you can take that example of HIPAA too, because you've lived it. It's so rigorous. It's so interesting because I did a medical data startup and I came back to finance, and it's interesting. Like the financial was like, oh, we've got all this regulation. It's so much. But if you're coming from the medical point of view, you're like, well, it's tolerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you think that American companies, Big Pharma and elsewhere, Biopharma and elsewhere, are going to have to maybe get more used to regulation, kind of how the medical world has been?
I think so. And, again, think about the way AI is now integrated in our lives, from personal devices to, every single thing. There has to be something, and I do think there will be something in terms of protecting, again, patient data and protecting, because again, if you know the risk profile or what risk you are falling into, it's better to avoid something than not knowing it at all. So again, as I said, I did not do like that much of research either to what is the latest in that space, but I can tell you that I do get a lot of different papers and different literature. I keep getting that about, different proposals that are in place in the United States. But again,
you have to let it wash over you because a lot of it's proposed hasn't been ratified yet, and it's too many things to keep in your mind. So yeah, I kind of do that too. I just let it kind of flow through my inbox until somebody votes on it. I wanted to also just ask you a little bit, we talked a little bit about, there's known regulations that we want to make sure that we're thinking about when we're doing the R&D process, right? And we want to be thoughtful about that because AI is going to really jump up the velocity, right? You're also telling us that you want to make sure that you're getting really accurate outcomes because that's the most important thing. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, or if you've thought about it, how AI might help address some of the long-time concerns in medical research and biopharma about, what's the best way to say this? But there's people who've been left out of the process. Like many women are not part of these studies in the past. People who are underrepresented sometimes have very different needs for like a blockbuster, pharmaceutical. And so has there been any discussion or thought about like new or interesting ways AI might be able to tilt it back in the direction of fairness for these groups?
Yeah. So there is an initiative called as health equity in clinical trials. So essentially what that means is, again, a lot of drugs in past, the way when you look back at clinical trial data, a lot of, underrepresented population, even including women and, I would say people of color, they were all left out in the trials. And hence what happened is, okay, the drug went to market, it was approved. Now, there were some side effects or adverse effects that were reported in such populations, which again, were not known because it was never tested on such patients. So now there is this central initiative, which is called as health equity. Again, it's every biopharma company, I think, is a part of a consortium. And it has embedded, now, again, like how, in recruitment, you have a certain guidelines to say that you have to have XYZ candidates. You have to interview certain, diversity of candidates to be able to say that your interview is complete. It's now similar in clinical trial space where, there is emphasis on making sure that the trials that are being run includes, certain type of populations, especially the underrepresented group. Because if that drug or, sort of the adverse effects are tested on that specific population, we'll know about if there are any side effects, and that those could be reported in the FDA report. Because, if they are excluded, then I mean, they will eventually take the drug, but then we are not going to know. So yeah, there is, to your point, to answer your question, there is a lot of emphasis on that. And again, now clinical trials, there's a lot of, I would say, also conferences very specifically focused on clinical trial diversity. So I would say, yeah, the future is changing. Now, the way drugs are being developed, there is consideration about diversity.
Interesting. I guess it leads me to my one other question, and then we'll wrap up a little bit. I'd love to hear, in our wrap up, we'll talk a little bit about futures and where you think this is going. But, it seems like part of your role has to do with updating processes to a modern process. What about adopting it? I try to think about the teams that are already, they're off to the races. They're using the process they've got. They're under their own deadlines. What has worked for you to help people adopt a new way of doing things? And, their reputations are on the line. Maybe it's been 6 years. They've already been doing this. What works to get people's attention and get them to adopt something new?
Yeah. So again, what I've tried to, what I kind of saw work, at least for my specific group, and I actually implemented this kind of approach earlier this year, is that I started a forum, which again, the purpose of the forum is threefold: that people come, they learn about a new technology, then they see an application, and then they see something futuristic. So which is, sort of distribution of, this is what it is, this is how you can actually use it, and then this is how it could be in future. So I design a forum, which I run on monthly basis. And I curate the content based on a specific to the group, to say this is how this use case is what we're going to show this group. So think of, just to give you a simple example, is the technologies Gen AI. Now we're going to show how your group can use Gen AI. So these are different prompts that you can use in this tool to be able to get the results you want. And then this is what we are going to, this is the possibility in future. These are the Gen AI products we can possibly build or are possible or are available for you to have. So this way, what I noticed is it was very easy to bring people along. So initially, this started more as a fun hour. People come, you ask questions, and then there is a lot of engagement type of, offline engagement, in the sense anonymous questions people can ask where they don't have to declare who they are. It started like that, but now it has become more of an official learning channel. So now I was able to get it approved to say people are going to get credit for it. So again, my company has this learning goal every year that people have to meet. So now people are getting, say, credit for that forum. So again, my goal was how to make things very simple and fun. So I was able to successfully do that. And again, I have some data which shows the adoption rates of when, the forum started, how people were not using certain technologies. And now I can see the numbers going up. And also what they are doing on monthly basis, are they using it or not? Yeah. So again, I really think when I made it simple and fun and personalized. So I think personalization is the key. When it made sense for them, that this is how I can exactly use it. Okay, give me a list of prompts. Okay, now I'm going to use it. Because until then, they were not ready to use it. They were like, I just don't know what you're talking about.
So if I was the head researcher, would it be up to me to say, we're definitely using AI, we're definitely not using it, we're going to stick with what we've got? Who kind of decides the approach in the structure?
Yeah, so again, that all is based on, firstly, what is the remit of that person, again, and they come with the problem. So again, it's not about let's use AI, it's about the problem. So it will be these are the problems.
Too long, or there's too much material.
These are the three problems we want to solve this year. And then, they would come to you, and then there is this pilot approach where, okay, let's try to build something in 6 weeks as a prototype, see if it's, something that fits and can solve your problem with a small data set. And then, let's, if it's giving you the right results, let's then expand it. So yeah, so that's the kind of approach.
I got you. You just sort of show your work and not beforehand. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, let me ask you this. We're kind of coming to the end here. You painted a really interesting and compelling picture of how AI is going to drive velocity, drive new discovery. And it all seems very, I'm following AI. That seems like, right. That's like, I feel like that's available to us now in some ways. Where do you see this kind of going in the future though? Like if you think about like, okay, here's the trajectory. Where do we land in 10, 15, 20 years with this? Like what kind of changes would you expect?
Yeah. So, I mean, one, as I mentioned, personalized medicine is definitely something where I see this could go. And meaning, like how I mentioned that now you can actually tailor treatments to a patient by getting their genetic data, their lifestyle data, their biomarkers, and all this could be collected through a bunch of, IoT devices. So you can collect that, you can, get the genetic data, get the blood data, so like based on all of that information, AI, and then put that in AI, it can forecast, what a patient's response to a specific medicine could be. Also, by identifying biomarkers, it could say, based on this person's genetics, this is what I could see can happen to this person. So again, all this is helping in designing the personalized medicine. So think of how, if I want a dress, I can get it custom made for me. But then, when it comes to medicine, it is what is on the shelf. But I think that's where I see the future of medicine going, that now, it's a medicine, or like, how skincare products are nowadays. You send your picture, skin color.
Oh yeah, that's right. I've seen that.
So it's like that kind of analogy, like how, AI is going to help it, because AI is going to get all this data together and then, use machine learning to be able to make some predictions that at least could tell, either a patient can avoid certain diseases, or, this is what you should take, and this is the specific medicine to you. So I think definitely a faster personalized medicine is what I see as the future. And again, Jocelyn, none of us are now away from robots. So that could be...
I want more robots.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, that is other thing that I see. And again, with the speed of how Gen AI has caught up in our day-to-day work, I do see the future of work changing. Like all of our jobs are going to change. How they're going to change, we don't know yet.
I feel like that's true too. I feel like that's true. I agree with you, but I can't picture what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, that's what I would say. I'm thinking of future as like these three things are going to be there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big part. I don't think we've dealt with it enough. There was an interesting article that, people who build AI, the tech leaders are like, oh yeah, don't look over here. But it's true. There's going to be a lot of impact, I think, and faster than we might realize. So I do think that's really important for you to call out. Nishtha, it was so great to have you here. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to make sure the audience was aware of before we sign off?
Yeah, so I think I think I want to leave everyone with maybe 3 C's. So I came up with this again. I love like acronyms and short things.
I'm figuring that out about you.
Yeah, because then, it's easy to remember. So again, and this is more around for innovators, advice for innovators or technologists. So 3 C's is like create, collaborate, and be considerate or considerate. And the first C is create, that, as people are thinking about creating AI solutions, let's address real healthcare challenges or, like problems that could improve patient outcomes. So let's not just create AI solutions for sake of it, but let's try to, solve genuine problems. So I think that's the create piece of it. Collaborate is, sometimes the solution can be within your company, but sometimes you may have to go out. So you may have to find the right technology partner, technology company, right? Or you may have to work with another pharma company, or you may have to actually work with a smaller startup company. So I think that is the key to innovation. So collaborate, which is, collaborate inside the company, collaborate across the company. And if in your company, you have people with similar titles, just go and talk to them, understand, what they're working on, because that can help break down those silos. So I think collaboration is the second C. And then the third C is considerate, or, which I call be considerate, is again, familiarize yourself with what are the what is regulation, AI regulation saying in healthcare or in any space you are, and keep the compliance in mind as, people are sort of, moving in this innovation field. And then it's very important to continuously, prioritize any ethical and safety related issues. So again, being considerate, of environment, of policies, of people's, health data. So again, it's our responsibility at the end of the day. So yeah, so like making, as we innovate in AI, making it like responsible AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you're saying about collaboration. I work with a lot of startups as an advisor, and I really encourage founders to look at problem statements in different industries, because it's often can just really open up your thinking and really understanding of different problem statements. So it's really important for investors and founders too to have a broad view of how people are applying this technology. If you're thinking about I want to come up with a novel way or a new use case, it's sometimes really useful to look at other industries, which is kind of how you've opened my mind today. So I really appreciate it, Nishtha. It's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I really appreciate this time. And I'll hopefully see you soon.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.